From One of One Production Studios, broadcasting from NYC, you are listening to Unexpected Success with your host, Joy.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Unexpected Success with me, your host, Joy. Today I am floored by who we have in the studio. I couldn't sleep last night. We have Mikki Taylor in the studio. Thanks so much for coming.
I'm so honored to be here.
I'm like, no, I'll get the jitters out. Eventually I will slow down. But for those of you who don't know, which is almost impossible, Mikki Taylor is she is everything beauty, right? For the last 30 years, you've honored us with expanding knowledge about Black women and beauty in Essence magazine. You're a popular writer. You have a few books. Your latest editor in Chic, which I have some excerpts from and just love the book.
Thank you.
And also, motivational speaker, TV personality, and a media veteran, 3 decades.
Yes.
Wow.
Of serving us.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Great job.
And how much do we need it?
It's so important. I think that, as time goes on, it's critical that we really linked arms and aims and lift one another. We're really writing a new script that the elders couldn't give us. And on our watch, we have to make sure that we not only empower and shore up one another, but that's the example that we give to our younger sisters and our children.
Right. And especially in times like these where there's so much content, and I think if you follow the wrong narrative, you can end up in a really bad place.
And you'll absorb it as your own.
Right.
And that's the thing that we must watch. On our watch, anything that, we have to hold up things to our truth. And anything that's not valid, we have to dismiss it. Because the danger of taking on, the ways of others that are not our own, certainly is going to throw us off track.
Right. And how do you even define who you are if you're being, especially in formative years, right? So, granted, we grew up in a time where there wasn't social media, and so we were able to, I guess, take things from our parents and from our close friends who we're associated with. But nowadays, you can go online and see someone else's life and decide that you want to be that, and then you get really confused because which image is yours, right? And so... Right. Which is how the podcast was born, of wanting to really highlight just successful stories of, and wanting to encourage future entrepreneurs, people who are fearless. And I know that you have some pretty amazing quotes about fearlessness, and I know that you said that your mom told you that being risk averse is to be success averse.
Clearly. Right. And so you really, she encouraged us to step out on faith and certainly to know who we are. That was really drilled into us in our home in our formative years. And it's the foundational stuff that you take with you. So if you really know who you are, what you want to contribute in life, otherwise known as your purpose, that thing that you must do, and not only for you to visualize how it will serve others, that's the thing, those are the fundamental things that stay with you.
Did you always know... when did you know what your purpose was?
I really think that you kind of get a real glance of your purpose during your childhood years. For example, I played with my dolls until I was 14. And so when I came to Essence, it was another way of playing with my dolls. But, during the formative years, I dreamt a world. I had multicultural dolls. I had multi-generational dolls,
right.
And just beauty, certainly growing up in a home where beauty was the mantra of the day. My mother certainly was a hairstylist and makeup artist to the late American icon that was Sarah Vaughan. They traveled the world together for 10 years. My mother, could source makeup in other countries that looked like us, which, to my dismay, it took a long time for that to happen on these shores, but that's a whole other conversation. But then after she came home from the road, she opened her own beauty salon. And that's where I really saw even my mother playing with her dolls, if you will. Right. And I saw what I felt was the transformative power of beauty, in that women weren't only getting great hairstyles, they were getting affirmation, they were getting life coaching long before the term ever came
Absolutely.
to be, therapy, fellowship, and just leaving there not only looking good, but feeling fabulous. And so I think that, certainly that was in my DNA, but that glimpse of playing with my dolls, of watching my mother and the power of beauty at a young age, really gave me a glance into the future.
And okay. Amazing. So where are you from? And can you, I know it's a journey, and you have siblings.
I do.
You have siblings.
I do have siblings, yes.
And so where did you grow up?
I grew up in Brick City. I'm a Newark, New Jersey girl.
Oh, you are? Oh,
yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, absolutely. My mother and Sarah actually were schoolgirl friends. And in fact, when Sarah became Sass, or the divine one, if you will, she bought the house across the street so my mother could be close. So that's where we lived. I grew up right on Avon Avenue. And so,
unbelievable.
Yeah, that's where my story began. Certainly, my mother's mother was the first of our family, the first generation to live in Newark. On my mother's side of the family, my heritage is Southern, from Selma, Alabama, Kentucky. On my father's side, it's Virginia, and Newark. My grandmother was the first generation, and so the city offered just all the wonders, if you will. My mother was the first entrepreneur in our family. And I guess you could say that it was sort of like the elders or the ancestors' dreams coming to life. If I look at my mother's generation, even my grandmother's generation, and certainly mine and my daughters, and yeah. That's where my story began.
I mean, blown away. So your siblings, older, younger, like where do you fit?
I'm the eldest.
You're the eldest.
Yes, and my brother is 6 years behind me. He's in tech, and he's also a minister. And then my youngest sister is an entrepreneur. She's on the West Coast. She supports women who are survivors of domestic violence. She also has her own boutique. She wears a number of hats. But again, another way of being engaged in women's lives. She actually, my mother handed her second beauty salon down to my sister, which my sister ran in New Jersey for a while, and decided to pull up her roots and go to the West Coast and work with women in a different way. And but I think a life of service is really the point. If I look at our legacy as a family, it's a life of service.
So good. Do you think that your mom is your biggest inspiration, being that she was an entrepreneur?
Without question. Really? I didn't have to look far for a role model. My mother was, she filled every ounce of her size 9 shoes. She was a huge inspiration. She used to walk the floor sometimes whenever we would have our moments of doubt and say that she didn't raise any quitters. And, she did things
force.
that...
She's a force.
Yeah, she was a force.
Right.
Oh, my gosh, a force to reckon with.
Right.
But she really taught us, not to live in the shadow of who we are meant to be. Right. And she didn't take no for an answer. She didn't suffer can't very well. She was always on course and always on purpose. Even in the face of challenge or adversity or illness, she never lost the truth of who she was. And so when you come of age, with a role model like that, you tend to know the difference between excuses and reality and what you can accomplish.
So I guess I want to get into how you ended up being at Essence. But speaking with my mom, and she's like, oh, there was no Essence before Mikki. Like, she's like, wow. She said, there was images in the media of like the light-skinned black girl, right?
Right.
But she was like, but when Mikki came with that smile and like just the beauty, and she was dark and gorgeous and speaking to us, I'm getting goosebumps as I say it. It turned a whole corner of just a place where black women could go, that they were actually talking to them about everything, right? And that type of, I guess, power and influence, how do you even contend with that? Because I know when people see you, they must people in awe of you. I'm in awe right now. Like I typically talk and giggle a lot more. I know I'm still kind of shell shocked. But how does that, you knowing the impact that you have and that you continue to have, that you've had and continue to have on all generations, right? How do you step into that? I mean, I guess not step into it. I don't know what the right word is, but how do you deal with that?
I think certainly for me, I'm humbled and honored at the same time. I'm really about service, not status, and it is a joy and a privilege to get up every day to go to work on our behalf. I also operate with a sense of urgency because I want to see us fly. And in fact, there's a sign poster that hangs in my daughter's room that I placed there that said, "Blessed is the influence of one loving soul upon another." So if you get to impact someone else's life, just help them behold the woman that they see in the mirror every day with celebration and joy, and to appreciate their authenticity, well, it really doesn't get any better than that. If you multiply that by millions, you really can't get your spiritual or your mental arms around it, but you just know that you're making a difference. And that the work is not done. So you really don't have time to look back or to sit and pat yourself on the shoulder. You give thanks and you keep going.
Okay. So you just keep pushing forward. You don't even take the time
forward.
to. I mean, yeah. So that's so funny because, like, I think on my introductory episode, I was saying that people who are truly successful, you don't take the time to look at your success. You're like, if someone pats you on the back, you're like, oh, that's nice, thank you. But you just keep on pushing because you know that you have more work to do.
You have more work to do. And also, I understand, it's something that I say in my latest book, Editor in Chic, that life is not a dress rehearsal. This is it. And one of the main things I'm trying to do is to help women move from, let's say, the sidelines in their lives to center stage. And so, no, you can't sit down because even though you can measure those that you have helped, so to speak, there's still a vast territory of women out there that still need to be empowered. One of the things that I said to beauty companies and that I say as I visit and speak with them, that I really want them to get behind the message of Editor in Chic, because I don't only want to take this message to empowered women, I want to take this message to disempowered women, women who are in shelters, women who have been spiritually and emotionally robbed by domestic abuse or sex trafficking or what have you. It's very real. And so even when I'm speaking at conferences, I want a table for them, because I don't really feel that we can truly know success when there are women who don't know it, or that we could be content with leaving women behind when we have the power to make a seismic shift. So
and reaching them, right?
And reaching them.
And
reaching them is so easy in this day and age.
No, absolutely. With social media, I mean, leveraging social media gives you the ability to, I see this hair that you're trying to.
Thank you.
I know it's gone. You got it. We have the reach, but it's making sure that they're listening to you, as opposed to listening to, I don't want to say any names, but other people who are giving a not so a negative a negative image, right?
Or sending a message that says they are not enough.
Right.
I have a problem with that, because we are enough. We wake up enough. As one of the wisdom keepers in my book says, you wake up enough, you show up enough, I'm clear that the Creator was satisfied when He signed off on each of us. And so the validation doesn't get any bigger than that.
Right.
So I don't want us to lose track. I don't want us to measure our worth by the wrong thing, or by the wrong images for that matter. It was critical to me, certainly on the beauty pages of Essence, to showcase us in all our glory, all shades, all sizes, all shapes, all hair textures, when I see a sister who has a gap, I'm like enchanted.
Yeah,
You know, I could just go down. I've got my list. You know, I want us to embrace our full lips and, you know, to really just love on our authentic selves, because the other half of the world is writing a big check for the things that we were born
so
with.
that's interesting. So what is your theory on all the plastic surgery and, you know, like the lip enhancements and the butt enhancements and, you know, all of this, you know?
I have a problem with the grass is greener on the other side theory.
Right.
I think that it's an insult to the creator to say that you are not satisfied with what he did in creating you. Now, I'm also not against, beauty treatments or procedures or the things that, you know, if it's something that brings sorrow to your spirit, for example, I get it.
Right.
But if you're trying to mimic the beauty of someone else, or if you're trying to look like someone else, if this is outside of the wonder scope of who you are, I think that bears a question. I think that bears a question for your soul.
Right. So when you have all these people who tend to look like siblings, right? Everyone's going to the same doctors, and you're like, you guys look alike now. This is
Right.
It's like clones of people who are just trying to
clones of people asking for so and so's nose or
Yes.
so and so's butt, or
and there's danger in
Yeah.
that. And, you know, so it's interesting. So, you know, you've been around long enough to kind of see, I guess, where the country was, you know, say in the 70s, right? And, you know, the Reagan years, the Bush years. I don't want to get too political, but but I think it should be, you know, I think the audience and the listeners probably should get some inspiration from what we're going through currently with the current administration. And then we had the Obama years, obviously, and you had a wonderful book, Commander in Chic. I guess based on where we are now and the threat, I guess what's your, because I think everyone, I know I am looking for answers, looking for someone to say, a leader to say, it's okay, we're going to be okay. But no one's actually saying that because everyone's kind of wondering what's happening. I guess what's your take?
My take on it, and certainly what's taking place in the country right now, is that this is a great call to consciousness. And I think that even if you're troubled in your own spirit, you have to ask yourself, is it a challenge or an opportunity? Is it an opportunity for us to step up? Is it an opportunity to convey leadership as opposed to looking for leadership? Is it an opportunity for us to not hallucinate about the reality of our times or the reality of our votes, for that matter?
Right.
You know, this calls for honesty. It calls for transparency. It calls for ownership. You know, how can we lead by example?
As opposed to looking for the leader.
Exactly.
We are the leader.
Exactly. Our generations of our people, and no matter where you are from in this country, no matter where your ancestors are from, they've all known tough times. They've all known adversity. They've all known some form of terrorism, for that matter.
Right.
Keeping it real. And so how did they step up? How did they overcome? And what will we do on our watch?
What will we do on our watch? That is the question.
It's not a dictatorship. Let's be clear.
Yeah. I guess I've watched a lot of Handmaid's Tale. Have you seen that?
I am.
Goodness. And it's I almost regret watching it, but
I'm sure.
Yeah. But it's fear-based, right? And, the biggest thing is fear, and how much fear can paralyze you. And comparison can also paralyze you. And it's like kind of born of the same place. And I was lucky enough, blessed enough to be in a room where you discussed comparison, specifically between women, right? I think to a large degree, I've never said that I was a girl's girl. I have an older brother. I've been kind of like a little bit boyish, and I've always said I was a guy's girl. But I think I had just a lot of issues with women growing up, and it had a lot to do with comparison, right? And I was struck by the theory of reserved seating that you mentioned. Can you please bless us with that? As if it struck me.
I firmly believe in reserved seating. I think whatever your gift is, your divine assignment, whatever you have been created to do, that no one else can show up and do it like you do. And what is there for you, no one else can show up and claim it. You do have the power to give it away, but no one else can show up and claim it. And so I compared it to something as simple as when you purchase a theater ticket. If your seat is B9, you don't expect to get to B9 and see someone else sitting in your place.
Right.
It's the same thing with your gift and your purpose, your destiny. And I just say to us that if we understand the principle of reserved seating, God does too.
I mean, jewels are being dropped. That struck me so profoundly, because there is so much comparison and there is so much copying, and I think that it's fine to be inspired by things, but the concept of there's only one place, like I'm taking something from you or you're taking something, like it's not that.
It's not so. It's not so. And so, one of the things that I say in the book, I quote writer Freya Stark, who is a favorite of mine. She said, there can be no happiness in life if the things we believe in are different from the things we do. So how can I say I believe in you and I want you to win, but then I do something else contrary to that because I see you as a threat?
Right.
There's two sides of my mind working here, and that's instability. The scripture says that a double-minded person is unstable in all his ways, and that proves to be true. So you have to really honor, who are you really? What do you really believe in? Do I really believe in you? Do I want you to win? Then if I do it, then I have to stop the malignant thinking that you're a threat to me.
Right.
And I really have to see what I bring to the table. The other thing, I'm clear about fear in that, I am such a faith-based person in that I really do believe that faith is nothing if it's not defining your life. If it's just a ritual that you do on Sunday, stay home, because Monday through Saturday is full with the real stuff.
Right.
And if that faith is not carrying you through the week, don't go to church and be hollering amen and singing, and you're not that. Don't do it. So the reality of it is, the scripture says that the Creator has not given us the spirit of fear. So that means it's self-manufactured. So if you're not in the business of manufacturing fear and making great revenue from it, don't embrace it.
And fear is typically born of shame.
Born of shame, a lack of self-worth.
Right.
You don't know your value. You feel inferior to others. Eleanor Roosevelt said it best. She said, no one can make you feel inferior without your consent. Stop agreeing to that.
Agreeing to it.
You have a choice every day to be your most empowered self. And, so do you see it again as an opportunity, or is it a challenge? Is it something you're shrinking back from? And if so, why?
Well, if you consider nowadays people will post and or not post for attention, for approval, right? And they say that, so essentially your actions are controlled by how it will be received by others, or how you perceive it being received by others. And that's a lot, to a large degree, what the young generation, even I'm guilty of it, of wanting to be received, not wanting to feel quote unquote rejection.
I think it's important that if you, we all have those moments in the valley, if you will, where we maybe don't shine. And that's where I think your celebration circle comes in, that team of celebrants that you have around you that remind you of the truth of who you are.
I love the celebration circle.
Who will stand with you no matter what.
Right.
It's like one of the wisdom keepers says in the book, when you wake up in the morning, you need to like yourself first, instead of going out there to source how many folks click like.
Right.
Really? No.
I mean, that's a jewel. Are you guys hearing this jewel? Because I think that's the key to what's happening from what I see. And even when I see with the younger generation, right? Really not necessarily, like, I'm not sure if you've seen it, but you go out to dinner and someone posts a selfie. And the entire time they're trying to doctor the selfie to make sure the selfie's perfect so they can talk about how they're having fun at dinner. But you're sitting there with them and you're not having any fun with them. Right?
Because they're not present.
Because they're not present. They are literally focused on showing that they're at this place, and it's so common now. Anyway, we digress.
Well, I get it. And, that's why sometimes I will post the next day.
Right.
And I don't mind. It's like, okay, you could label me delayed TV. I got it. I'm fine.
No, it's fine.
I'm good
right.
with that. Because I'm going to be in the company of those I'm with. And I think that's so important. To me, even that's the difference between fellowship and networking. I see women networking, and while they're talking to someone, their eyes are roaming the room to see who they can get to next.
Yes.
Or they're really collecting cards, and they get home, and they don't know whose cards they've taken or why. Because life has to be more than transactional. So if I'm at dinner with you, right. I'm at dinner with you.
Right. And actually engaging.
Right.
Engaging. So, that's the thing, too. I think to a large degree, people don't sit with each other anymore. People don't talk on the phone anymore. Everyone is just kind of texting each other, but there's no true engagement. And even when you're with someone, they're actually trying to see who's texting them and calling them while they're with you. Right. And I think that lack of engagement really contributes to depression.
Absolutely, because what happens when nothing's going on? What happens when you are in the company of yourself? Are you not validated? Is your joy really attached to others and things? Do you not own your joy in full? I think that's really important. That's one of my hashtags. In fact, I talk about it. When I met the late James Baldwin many years ago, he paid a visit to the Essence offices, and I was so, like everyone who had the honor of meeting Brother Baldwin, impressed because he owned his joy in full. And I remember he had a conversation with us talking about how privileged we were to do the work we were doing. And I know that since that day, I never went to work a day in my life because I saw it differently. You work, really. Do you understand what it is to be able to uplift millions of women? Is that work, really?
No. Right.
Is your joy so shallow that it's defined by outside forces or circumstances or things? You have to assess what really brings you joy and that which you're able to sustain, because that's the real stuff. That's the real stuff. And if it depends on how many likes you have, if it depends on how your social media following is growing, if it depends on how many shoes in your closet, even if it depends on being fulfilled by someone else, you have to get still. You have to get still. I even worry when I hear women say, meet my better half. You really don't have a better half. You join in the eyes of God, a whole person to a whole person. At least that's the way
it's
divinely ordered. Yes. Yeah. So you're not lacking anything. You are complete.
And within Essence, I mean, clearly you worked with Essence, but you also were an entrepreneur within the organization. I feel like you were always able to create a different, like your own, you stayed independent of the company.
A brand within a brand.
And how did you know to do that?
By distinction. Again, that's one of the things I talk about in my book, that you really must master your purpose with distinction. So what do you contribute? What walks in the door with you? What do you bring to the table? You can't ever lose sight of that. I've seen so many women lose themselves in their title experience.
Absolutely.
Never recognizing that it's really all about your gift, and that the title that you hold for someone else, while it is a blessing, that is not the truth of who you are. You are coming to the table contributing to brand them in great way. But you also have to make sure that brand you is growing and that brand you is clear about what you bring and that it's not just about brand them.
And if they don't celebrate brand you, then you may not be in the right place.
You absolutely. And you have to know and not hallucinate, not ignore it.
So it's interesting because once upon a time I did have a corporate job, and I worked for a pretty large corporation. And one day they decided that they didn't want me anymore. But I was on this trajectory. I'm like, how dare you? It's like that got shut out the sky. And I literally went through a moment of years, actually, where I had to redefine or figure out who I was, because from where I sat, I had done all the right things. I had gone to school. I had gone to law school. I had become an attorney. I was on my way. I was in my incline. And during the incline, I had a fancy title. I had a nice office. I was all these things. And then I got shot out the sky. And it was, now 10 years later, I realized it was the best thing that ever happened to me.
Right.
But at the time, it's like, I should have done this. I should have done that. I should have figured out who I was. I should have branded myself within the company. I should have noticed the signs that I wasn't appreciated before I took the job. All these things start to come into your head. And for the listeners who might be in this space of like despair, it gets better.
Much better. What you have to recognize is that your gift goes with you wherever you go. But if you don't identify it, if you don't own it unapologetically, you can leave it on the floor.
And how do you identify it? I guess how do you identify the gift?
You must always know the strengths you walk in. You must always know what you bring to the table. And if you don't, that's a perfect opportunity. Again, I'm all about opportunities, not challenge. Opportunity to do your SWOT analysis. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What are your opportunities? What are your perceived threats? Because also half the things that we worry about never happen.
Right.
And if they're real threats, what are you prepared to do about them? How will you get out in front of them as opposed to waiting for them to come upon you?
Ugh.
What do you need to infuse yourself with?
Right.
Yeah. It was so interesting when I went to FIT a few years ago to take branding courses in professional studies division. The question was posed to me, are you here to teach or you're here to learn, taking a class? I'm like, I'm here to learn. Because it's not about, even operating in your gift with old information. So how do you continue to polish it? How do you continue to thrive in it?
Learning.
Continually learning.
And so you're strong and you're married.
Yes.
How does that work?
It works so well.
It does. Okay, so I guess, and I'm jumping all around because we don't have unlimited time, but I have 1 million questions. Just wondering, and you've been married for quite some time.
God willing, we'll celebrate our 36th anniversary on August 7th.
Oh, God bless. Yeah, that's amazing.
Thank you.
So how does that work? I mean, with your impact, your strength, all that you are, how do you maintain a successful relationship?
Well, I'm his wife. I'm his lover. I'm the mother of our children. No one's asking me for my business card at home.
So you take it off.
I'm real comfortable wearing his name. And we don't only love each other, we are in love. We are interesting people to one another. We didn't lose ourselves in one another, and yet we are one, if that makes any sense. One of the things that again, it goes back to faith. So I ask God for this man. I get to hold my answered prayer in my arms every day. And I don't think you should have a faith that can't be tested. So I tested God. 15 months, I didn't date or see anyone. Every day asking for him to send the husband that was one that I want and need.
Right.
Those are two very mature things
right.
to me. I had a girlfriend and her boyfriend. And I said, guys, get ready. 3 is going to be the crowd until God sends the answer. And I waited. And he sent him first as a friend. And he courted me for 2.5 years. The interesting thing that I know by divine order is that his aunt, his mother's sister, used to work in my mother's beauty salon for years.
Wow.
We never met as children. We never met as teenagers. We never met, post-college, anything, until the divine right time. Yeah.
36 years ago.
That's right.
Well, how long did you date before you married?
We dated 2.5 years, so we've actually been together about 38.5 years. Yeah.
Wow. And so, I'm not sure if you all noticed, but how soft.
Yeah.
Mush.
Yeah.
You got so soft when talking about him. I need to learn from that. I guess I'm 2 weeks away from my 7th wedding anniversary, and it's a constant struggle. I think.
I think the first 7 years are a learning curve. They are. You're fusing. That's how I like to put it. You're fusing.
Yeah, so we're still fusing.
Yes.
Okay, Tyson,
absolutely.
we're fusing, baby. We're fusing, honey.
Oh my gosh, yes, you're fusing. And
right.
yes, you fuss and you have the best fights in the world.
Oh, yeah,
and
he's a lawyer too, so our fights are epic.
Yeah, and you debate and all of that. You're
right.
fusing. Yeah. And then, I remember one day my husband said to me, honey, haven't we been together too long to be mad at each other? And there was no response for that. And it was
right.
well.
You're like,
Yeah. Right.
And you have children.
Yeah, we have 3 children.
3 children.
Yes,
Oh, that's amazing. Are they local?
They're all the last 2 are local. The oldest is on the West Coast. She's a paralegal in California, and our middle son, he's followed in his father's footsteps. He's an educator, so he teaches locally in New Jersey. He's in his 9th or 10th year of teaching. I forget. It's terrible. He's coach, philanthropist, health and phys ed teacher, all of that. And our youngest is an animator and an illustrator.
Oh, wow.
So she freelances, and she came back home after college, and
so
she's with us.
Actually, I need to.
Yeah, so she's with us, and she's also, books are her passion, so she also works part-time at Barnes & Noble. And then we have the grand dog, if you will. Our son brought a dog back home from college, and she's been with us forever.
So funny. I came home with a dog from college too, and it became my parents' dog. It was like the grand dog.
And then we have a grandbaby. Our grandbaby is also on the West Coast. Yes, my oldest daughter. Yeah,
so a rich family. So you've managed to have it all.
Have what matters.
Right.
Yeah, I talk about that at the end of my book because I think that having it all is a broad theory, and
is it brainwashing?
Yeah, and it's competitive, and it is, to me, sort of a spirit that's unsettled, in my opinion, my humble opinion. I think for each person, it's about having what matters, and only you get to decide that.
Do you think that there's somebody out there for everybody?
Oh, I do. Indeed, I do. Yes, I do.
And that it can come at different ages.
Absolutely. Most of all, you want it to come when you're ready.
Right. When you're ready to
receive it. When you're ready to join a whole person to a whole person, and to receive and to reciprocate and to love unconditionally and to be in a judgment-free zone. Yeah, I think love has responsibility. It's not just Eros love, the law of attraction and the physicality, and it's not, I think if all we know to do is to have sex with one another, shame on us. I mean, we are the Creator's chief creation on earth. And so there's so much more to us.
So I guess, I can go all day. And I'm not even sure how long we've been on. But I guess if you had any advice that you'd want to I mean, first of all, everyone has to go out and get the book. Editor in Chic, few snippets of the book that I actually wanted to talk about, but I think we've kind of gone a little bit long. I guess any words, any parting words, any advice that you want to provide to men or women, or just, an entrepreneur that's scared, or I guess parting words.
You know what I say? One of my favorite Mikkiisms, those are my unapologetic edicts on the truth.
Right.
I will say this, don't put a period where you should put an exclamation mark. That applies to your life, your love. Let that define all of your codes. And then finally, as I say at the close of my book, may you wake up every day excited to be you. Just you, all of you, you in full.
I love it. Well, guys, there you have it. I mean, so many quotes and jewels that have been dropped. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.
And we are going to, of course, feature everything, the book and a lot of the things that you've accomplished on social media. And I don't know. I guess, it's a wrap. Thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of Unexpected Success with Joy. You can find us on iTunes, Spotify, iHeart, YouTube, and Podbean. Please hit subscribe and leave a review once you've listened. Until then, keep winning. Cheers. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
This podcast was brought to you by 23DB Productions, ID Productions, and One of One Productions. For more information, go to Facebook and Instagram, Unexpected Success with Joy.